back to the podcast, back to the Halloween episode, and we're gonna dig in with. I'm gonna call it an oldie because, quite frankly, at this point, if anyone that has picked up wrestling in the last couple of years, this is probably something you had to dig up. Once upon a time, there was a pro wrestling video podcast called Being the Elite. It doesn't exist the same way anymore. And at least for a good generation of pro wrestling fans, along with, the 2011 Punk promo, these were some cornerstone little pieces that kind of dug in the hardcore fan and slowly brought people in just because it presented an alternative. Here, I'm going to give you a Cody Rhodes promo. One that is a little foul mouthed, to be quite frank, but it talks about one of the greatest horrors of a pro wrestler.
You guys want to hear a fucking story?
Yeah, Marty. You want to get scared, Marty? Yeah. Okay.
This right here is the tale of the independent contractor.
Oh, you scared, huh? You're flaccid? Are you scared, huh? How about this?
260 something days on the road.
You're scared. Yeah, you're scared, man. Huh? What about you, huh? Look at that, huh? Oh, yeah. Oh, how about this?
No health care.
What? No health care? No. Huh? You scared? Marty, you f***ing scared? Huh? Oh, okay. What about this? You guys know Christmas? You know Christmas?
Yeah, Christmas.
Guess what?
Shut up.
You'll be on a plane.
No, that's too far. That's too far. That's too far, Cody.
I want to release.
All right, Greg, I'm going to come to you first because it sounds like you had some familiarity with Being the Elite for sure.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Being the Elite was hilarious. I mean, to me, it was like without Zack Ryder's True Long, you know what I mean? Whatever, his Long Island True Story, whatever you call that thing. Without that, that's the precursor to Being the Elite to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like this was taking Zack Ryder's thing to the next level with a whole group having fun, getting together, making fun of other stuff, making fun of their own pushes and all that, right? I mean, just that right there. Oh, let's talk about what's scary. And they're making fun of WWE, but they're not just making fun of WWE. They're making fun of the industry as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And they're oh no, you're going too far. Give me my release, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I think that's a perfect snippet of what Being the Elite was. And also you start to see even in that the charisma that Cody had.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that he had command, he had delivery, he had timing. Everything that he had going on right there is what you see today. But just the way he presented it, hey, my scary story is all true, and it's just like, yeah. And guess what? Sorry, everybody, it's still the same in AEW. Even though that first press conference they said we're gonna give everybody health care and all that, it's still the exact same. But as nothing has changed. But at the end of the day, it is a scary story. But it's wild. I think that's pretty entertaining though. Their reactions, just hearing the comments in the background. I think that's the key part. Is those little comments in the background. That's what's puts that over the top. Not just Cody's delivery, but all those little snippets from Hangman and Marty and all these others.
Peppering, right? Yeah.
Little ad libs, for sure. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, and I think that's a piece of it, right? It's that that you said it's the cohesive, the collaboration. You can tell they were just throwing things at the wall and seeing what would stick without any consequence because there was so much goodwill towards what this was because it was still small. It was still punk, underground, DIY, grassroots. Adrian, what did you think about the promo?
Nah, it was hilarious, man. One thing about Being the Elite that I really gravitated through too was the fact that not only did you get to see behind the scene of them traveling the roads, meeting fans and that sort of thing, But
Mhm.
like Greg said, it gave them the opportunity to just play around, man, show their personalities off. A lot of those guys that would be on Being the Elite, their kayfabe character was a certain way, but
Yep.
you would catch them on Being the Elite, and it's a completely different personality. And maybe it's more true to them. That's what I would think watching it. But it let those guys let their hair down, have fun. They actually got a lot of stuff over, a lot of gimmicks over that still survive to this day. Like
Yeah.
that
Hmm.
whole FTR. I mean,
Hmm.
fuck the
Yeah.
revival. I mean, that's literally that team's name now because that was a whole gimmick from Cody of having his coffee cup and it would say it and little Easter eggs and that sort of thing. Like it, Adam Hangman Page being an alcoholic, that being the elite created that
Hmm.
whole gimmick. Like, and that still goes on somewhat to this day. So it's a lot of that stuff that really, really, like you said, Adelaide, it was punk rock, it was underground. So we all gravitated through it and we championed it because it was the alternate. It was the alternative to WWE. It was the alternative to what we've been used to, and we wanted to see it succeed, and that's part of the reason why AEW kicked off the way it did.
Oh yeah,
A lot because of being the
Yeah.
elite.
and to jump in on what you just said, like it got some angles over, it got some characters over. But if you really think of being the elite, it developed characters.
Mm-hmm.
Without that, the Bucks don't become what they become. Omega doesn't become what he became. Hangman sure as hell doesn't become what he became. Nor does Cody.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And so being the elite to me influenced the business on a whole different level. And actually, we all have our feelings about AEW wherever they are. We all know they have some of the best wrestling in the world. There's no doubts about that, right? In ring work. A lot of debate about storylines and character development. And if you go back and look at being the elite, that was the foundation of AEW.
Mm-hmm.
And those characters walked into AEW built off of a little YouTube show
Yep.
and
Yeah.
did more character development than WWE was doing at the time and or the AEW does today. Like at the end of the day, they were building characters and they were building reputations. And like you said, they may have had the kayfabe character, but then they started to blend it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they come out of that, they build AEW, they do All In, go to build AEW based off of that popularity with SCU, with the Elite, with the
Yeah.
Bullet Club, with all these others who happen to be coming in and out of it. And then think about what they got away with.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, FTR, but the New Day was on it too.
Yeah.
That's true.
When they
If
were
you
That's
doing that
true.
remember,
hard push to sign him,
yeah,
E3.
when they did a whole thing, yeah, they were at the video game thing and all that kind of stuff, and they went back and forth and all kinds of little things, and I mean, there's a lot of stuff there, and I would argue if you look at being the elite and New Japan was on fire, and when the being the elite started to fade away, so did New Japan
Yep.
Mm.
in the
Yep.
states.
Buzz. Yep. Yep.
I you hit it on the head. I mean, we could go on for days for like that whole era, which is to me really it is an era, right? It's a moment in
Definitely.
time,
Heck
and
yeah.
it's set up. It's set up everybody, and who knows if things don't happen the way that WWE is like on beyond on fire. Let's just call it what it is, right? But to me, kind of what struck out is something that you mentioned, Greg, is this idea of character development, right? Here we have Cody, who is still, he's doing the very, very dressed up look. He's coming out and, looking like $1 million, but he's leaning into this goofy character that, to be quite frank, if we go back a little bit, he was somewhat touching on in the JBL and Cole show, the other YouTube show
Mm,
that for me gets underappreciated because it was, it was a throwaway show, but he was developing. But now it's with this idea that I am one of the cornerstones of this group now, and I can do goofy, I can do serious, because ultimately what I'm doing is I'm developing who I am. And the fans are going to be very forgiving about who I am. The Young Bucks, before all this happened, were the more hated groups in pro wrestling, right? They
They
were
absolutely were.
like
hmm
legitimately not liked.
Yeah.
They were seen as cocky. There was Omega was kind of off in Japan. If you follow New Japan, you saw this whole thing. Just let him have a great time, and let him see another side of the personality. That comparison to Ryder is so apt, because it's through these shows, when done right, that we see, oh wow, you're very talented, you're very funny, you're very good at putting something together creatively. And for me, this is just kind of that. And it's Halloween and we're talking about that, but they took this whole episode that I pulled this from is a Halloween episode. They did it again the next year, with more of a budget for sure. But this is again punk rock, and that's what makes it cool to me. I think they were on the Jericho cruise. You can hear the water in the background. I think that's where they shot this, and that's why it's so dark. But yeah, I think it's a moment in time for sure.
The one thing, one last thing about that particular clip, them kind of sitting around, and the lighting reminds me of you holding the flashlight up underneath your face and all that. But what it reminds me of are those backstage interviews or backstage segments that ECW used to do. Like that real gritty, just kind of off the cuff, like they're almost like you're eavesdropping as opposed to them cutting a promo. And that's what it feels like when you're watching that Cody thing. It's like you're eavesdropping, like more so you're just watching it as opposed to him talking to you. He's talking to them, which is very different. You think about it, it's very different, especially at the time that you know, the wrestling promo is at the camera or at that person.
Yeah.
This was more like I'm just kind of sneaking in, paying attention.
That's a good point.
And what do you do when you want to reinvent? You learn the format, which all these people grew up. I mean, Cody grew up living it, right? And that's the best thing, right? You learn the format like the back of your hand, and then you break it, and you redo it in your own style or whatnot.
If you haven't already, like, comment, subscribe, and of course, look us up on socials at Suplex Dinner Club. And be sure to check out our other projects. We talk college football on Dogs versus All Y'all. That's a weekly college football podcast where we don't just talk about the Georgia Bulldogs. We talk about all things college football. The Life and Times pod, which is short for the Life and Times of a Restaurant Lifer podcast, where I have some chill conversations with some cool and interesting people that I've met in my years in the hospitality industry. And of course, check out Talk 'em in the Building. That's a pro wrestling podcast where we solely focus on the promo. We talk about the talkers, we hype the hype man, and we pontificate on the promo. It's a fun project, and if you're a pro wrestling fan, I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. If you're into TV and movie reviews, check out Four Corners Cinema with Ari and Adrian, a podcast where two lifelong pro wrestling fans review film and other forms of media that just so happen to have some of our favorite pro wrestlers. The Suplex Dinner Club family is growing, and I would love for you to be a part of it.